We've got the music cranking. It is time for another edition of Orange and Blue Today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, Denver Broncos, and I guess I'll start the show out today, Mace, by saying, one, it's good to be back after being on assignment yesterday, but two, do we know Mo? Do we know Mo and momentum, perhaps, arguably, hopefully, for this Denver Broncos team coming out of the bye?
There's the old cliche, momentum is as good as the next day's starting picture in baseball. And in football, momentum can only be as good as the next possession. So I'd like to think there might be some momentum, but it's kind of an unknown here. And given the fact that the Broncos had a bye last week and the fact that the Titans, it's probably going to be touch and go as to who is quarterback on Sunday. Right. I think Ryan Tannehill would have played last Sunday if it were a playoff game. But they probably thought, look, let's see if we can get through this game. I don't think the Titans thought they had a chance of winning. Turned out they actually did. I think maybe they regret perhaps not playing Ryan Tannehill in that game. Right. But they didn't. They lost. And I think they were all along looking at it and saying, all right, we don't expect to win in Kansas City, but we expect to win in Nashville. Let's try to have Ryan Tannehill ready then. And so that's something that changes it. So I'm not sure I quite buy into momentum going into this game.
Yeah, we shall see what happens with the Tennessee Titans. But what Malik Willis complete 3 passes?
5.
3 of 18, whatever it was.
It was 5 of 16. Cecil, after halftime on Sunday, the Titans, because sacks count as passing yards, Titans had minus 25 passing yards after halftime. And they did that against a defense that isn't as good as the one they'll see this coming Sunday. Now, the Titans will probably get a break if they don't see Baron Browning in action. Right. They won't see Randy Gregory. Baron Browning is day-to-day. That's going to be probably the primary topic in the injury reports over the next few days. So they would get a break there if they didn't get Browning, but they won't get any breaks going up against the Broncos secondary, not with Pat Surtain locking things down. So if Malik Willis couldn't get it done against the Chiefs, I don't see much reason to believe he's all of a sudden going to get it done as a passer against the Broncos defense. So yeah, you might be looking, if he plays, you might be looking at another ghastly low number for the Titans when it comes to passing the football. Malik Willis, we saw him down at the Senior Bowl this past January and February. There are some tools there, but you and I both knew this kid was going to take a while. This was going to be probably a 2 to 3 year development plan, and there you go. He wasn't ready for what the fire he got thrown into the last couple of games.
Absolute rocket of an arm.
Oh,
rocket of an arm. You rarely see an arm like Malik Willis, and he can run. He just doesn't know what he's doing yet. It's obvious on the field for the Tennessee Titans. You mentioned the Baron Browning thing. We'll get into the injury report as well, because Lloyd Cushenberry, the news today is that Lloyd Cushenberry put on IR for the Denver Broncos. This is a move we had anticipated, Mace. Not too surprised by the move with Cush being put on injured reserve.
Yeah, and with all respect to Lloyd Cushenberry, the offensive line on the interior was actually better with Graham Glasgow at center than with Cush.
100%.
Yeah, especially in pass protection. I don't think Glasgow, by my calculations and also by the ones at Pro Football Focus, didn't allow pressure on any of his pass protection snaps after he came in for Cush. So this is one of those things where I don't believe it hurts the Broncos. It's just that, okay, it's another injury. It's another combination. This is going to be, Cecil, the 6th different starting offensive line combination for the Broncos that we see on Sunday, whether Cam Fleming plays in this game or not. And you start looking down the offensive line, and we can get into all the reasons why it has struggled. We can talk about Butch Barry and how he hasn't been the most snug fit as an O-line coach compared to the exceptional Mike Munchak. But injuries have not done this group any favors, because when everyone but Dalton Reisner has missed some time, there's no cohesion coming from this group.
Right. No cohesion coming from this group, and now you move forward with Graham Glasgow as your center, Lloyd Cushenberry down, and hopefully he can get healthy and turn it around and come back and all those sorts of things. But the team looks better with Graham Glasgow in, and if they want to, Mace, and I sound like a broken record until it happens, I'll keep saying it. Like, if they wanted to, you could run a little bit more. You could take it easy with Russell Wilson. You could set up some play action shots, some deep shots, some bootlegs, some rollouts, these sorts of things. If you're running the ball, things look pretty good. And if Glasgow's out there, I feel like you have better ability to run the ball if you're the Broncos. But again, the desire and the commitment to the run have to be there. As we've seen, and we could tell the story, Mace, like, it's not really running the ball, it's the commitment to run. Like, it's 3 yards of carry, still running it, because those 3 yards of carry in the second quarter turn into 6 yards of carry in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and the thing is, I know there was a little bit of a dust up this weekend over over some comments about the Buccaneers and saying that they need to run the ball more, and that was a big problem. They weren't running the ball.
Wasn't Leonard Fournette complaining about that too?
Yeah, he was. He was. And I'm not one who says, okay, you absolutely have to have a running game to make an offense work. But for this offense the Broncos are running, you do need a ground game that's going to take the pressure off. You do need a ground game that's going to set up the play action, because the play action isn't taken seriously if you don't believe that the team's going to do anything when it actually runs the ball, right? And that has been an issue at times this season, and certainly it's been an issue at times the last few years for the Broncos. So I do want to see them run the ball more. And you know what? The other thing also, looking at this game, it's highly unlikely either of these teams is going to run away from each other. So if this is a game where you run the ball early, you pound it, and maybe those jabs become sledgehammer blows down the stretch, and you trust your defense to keep things close enough to where you're not in chase mode. And the Titans, the style of football they play, they're not going to pull away unless you give it to them. If you make a mistake, they'll pounce on it. But if you play mistake-free football, fundamental football, if you do run it, you know what? You're going to exact a toll on their very good front seven, and you're going to be able to get to have those jabs become sledgehammer blows by the fourth quarter. That's probably your best chance to win this game, to steal it in Nashville, no matter who's at quarterback for Tennessee.
Yeah, and you're going to see the Titans trying to run you over with Derrick Henry. That was a bit of a scare last week, at least from a fantasy perspective, Mace, because Henry was limited on Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday. I think he was limited Friday, top of my head, and then he played. And then not only did he play, but King Henry was, dominant once again. You're going to have that guy going up against you. So can you actually beat the Titans in a way that they want to beat you without handing them the ball, unless Melvin Gordon fumbles?
That, believe it or not, even though the Titans like to run up the middle, that's going to be predicated on on setting the edge. And if there's an area I'm really concerned about going into this game, it is outside linebacker without Bradley Chubb, with Baron Browning maybe playing, maybe not playing. If he doesn't play, you are talking about Jacob Martin just showing up, Jonathan Kongbo off the practice squad, and of course Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito starting. And that's a concern. We saw what Travis Etienne did going to the edge against the Broncos in London. We've seen that the Broncos have struggled against the run, even at relatively full strength early on against the Jets. And the only one they didn't really have up front was in the front seven was Randy Gregory. We even saw earlier on this season Josh Jacobs taking advantage of the fact that the Raiders had a lot of spread formations, and they spread the Broncos out horizontally, and then they gashed them on draw plays up the middle. It's not going to look that way for the Titans running the ball by and large. I do think they will try to get Derrick Henry outside the tackles a little bit more to try to take advantage of what they believe is likely a weakness. And this is where Nick Bonito has got to improve setting the edge. We know he can deliver in the pass rush. We see that. but he is going to have his hands full. And I expect the Titans to run right at Benito, especially if Baron Browning isn't out there. I think they'll test Jonathan Cooper as well, though Cooper is stouter at the point of attack than Nick Benito is. Benito is probably going to be under heavy fire on Sunday, having to fend with Derrick Henry. And that may be the key of the Broncos containing Derrick Henry is Nick Benito growing up under pressure. This is grow or die, adapt or die for Benito in this game. Because if he can't be up to the challenge, then Derrick Henry's going to be looking at a 150-yard day. And if he's at 150 yards, Titans are probably going to win this game and win it comfortably.
And that's the way they want to win. Mace, I've seen the future. It's Alex Singleton gets 19 tackles.
Yeah.
It's going to be that kind of day. Bring a lunch pail and your hard hat. Am I right, fellas? Yeah.
If he plays a lot, and that's an interesting thing because when Josie Jewell's been healthy, he's been on the bench. I do wonder, Cecil, and this is something we can kind of speculate about over the next couple of shows here.
Right.
You come out of the bye and you do some self-scouting and you do kind of reflect on things. I wonder if we're going to see some different personnel looks, if we're going to see maybe a couple of depth chart changes here and there. Because with Singleton, all right, yeah, he's gonna have a misplay going for the big play. I mean, look at week 1 when he blitzed and he missed Geno Smith and that allowed a touchdown to happen. But he is all over the place. He does go sideline to sideline, and you're going to need people who can close, especially if you've got Nick Benito having to play 40, 45 snaps there on the edge and mostly countering Derrick Henry and countering that Titans run game. You're going to need somebody to come in and kind of clean up the mess a little bit. So this to me looks like a game where I would even consider having Alex Singleton line up on the edge from time to time at outside linebacker. I would shake things up a little bit to get him on the field.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of shakeups there can be for the Denver Broncos coming out of their bye and going up against the Tennessee Titans. Roport asks on YouTube, should Albert O be reintroduced to the offense? No. Well, can he block? Is he trying? Like, that's the thing. You will be rewarded, like KJ Hamler is rewarded and needs to be rewarded more. But if you show that effort, Mace, this team will reward you with playing time, with targets, and O's not showing what he needs to show.
Right. If he's out there, to me, it's only on pass routes. I mean, I'd like to see him in space. I'd like to see him out there, but at the same time, who's deactivated? Are you going with one fewer wide receiver to get Albert O up? The other thing that's part of the equation with Albert O, another reason why he's not playing is he doesn't play on special teams. If you're going to be a rotational tight end, you're going to have to be at least a 2, if not a 3 phaser on teams. And he's a no phaser. So there's no room for him at the end in terms of a game day roster. Now, this could lead to another debate. Why do you have to deactivate guys? Blah, blah, blah. But this is the reality you're faced with. Your backup tight ends have to contribute on special teams, and Albert O does not. Thus, Albert O is not going to play.
That's the way it goes. Jorge says, move Jonas Griffith to the edge.
I don't mind that idea. I don't
mind it either.
The only thing is, and this is where you do worry more if Ryan Tannehill is in there than Malik Willis. If Tannehill's in there, then they get to play fake game going. And look, Tannehill, he's no one's idea of a great quarterback. We know his limitations. We know that he's going to he's going to be good for a potential big mistake every game. But there's a reason why, even with him being who he is, there's a reason why the Titans have been to the playoffs every year since he became their quarterback. If it were just Derrick Henry, we wouldn't be talking about this team being a playoff perennial. But Tannehill, when it works, he executes within the structure of that offense very well. And if you did put Jonas Griffith on the edge, that's a coverage liability, and they would pounce on that. So that's why I don't think we would see that on Sunday.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. They've got one of my favorite rookie tight ends, and if there was a year to fall in love with some rookie tight ends, Mace, this would be it. Because, like, I can't remember top of my head. I probably liked Isaiah Likely and Chigi Okonkwo over Greg Dulcich, but it was so close. Like, they were all mid-round picks to me with varying degrees of skill. And you're seeing Likely make plays. Obviously, Dulcich making plays. Chigi Okonkwo has made plays. He reminded me so much of Delaney Walker. So when the Titans picked him up, I was like, oh, my God, that's perfect. But again, they know who they are. They know what talent they need, and they know how to identify the players they want, except for the Traylon Burks thing. That was a bad pick.
Yeah, everybody misses. But I'll say this for the Titans as a whole. And I think there's going to be, over the course of this week, there's going to be a common thread that in terms of praising the Titans' philosophy and organization, because this is a team that knows exactly what it is. We've talked with the Broncos. We don't know what the bread and butter is. We still don't know what the bread and butter is for this team on the offense. Right. The Titans, they know what their bread and butter is. They've known what their bread and butter is for the last 4 years. Ever since Mike Vrabel walked in the door, they've known what their bread and butter is. And the genius of it is that even when they didn't have Derrick Henry last year, they still did those things well.
Dante Foreman.
Right. I mean, not quite as brilliantly as you had with Derrick Henry, who probably is on a Canton, Ohio trajectory, but once they adapted, they went right back to winning, and they basically picked off the number 1 seed to everyone's surprise. It's, this is a team that they're kind of the opposite of the Broncos the last few years. The Broncos, it's like, what are we? The Titans, no, these guys know exactly who and what they are. They're boring, but they're good and boring. You can be good and boring, and that's okay. I mean, I think the Titans haven't had a losing season since 2015.
Just get those W's, man.
Yeah, these are people who know what they're doing, and that's why you look up, and I think it was last year when Kansas City went there, and Derrick Henry was hurt, and the Titans upset him. I mean, this is why without Tannehill on Sunday, they go into Arrowhead and come within a late defensive lapse of pulling off a huge upset, right? That no one expected them to have. So, and this is the thing: if you do get them behind, this is not a team that blinks as well. If the Broncos get a 10-0 lead, you might say, "Oh, they're not equipped to come back." Not exactly, because they don't stop feeding Derrick Henry when they fall behind.
Right.
Because, like you said, that the Broncos should do. They understand that those early runs for 3 yards become 6, 7, 8 yards down the stretch, because they have such a firm belief in what they are and what they do.
Do you know what the Broncos remind me of over the last 6 years, but specifically Nathaniel Hackett playing the role of Dark Helmet in Spaceballs, where they grab the videotape? I'm sounding so old to our younger listeners. They're like, VCR. And they put it in, and they're like, fast forward, and they get to this part where they're at, and they're like, where are we at?
You're looking at now, sir. Everything that's happening now is happening now. You and I could probably do the whole scene. What happened then? We passed then. When? Just now. We're at now. When will then be now? Soon. Oh, God.
Oh, when will then be now?
Oh, my.
Perfect.
That is a classic.
Give me chills, brother. Give me chills. Perfect for the Denver Broncos.
It's for me the perfect Venn diagram of sci-fi and Mel Brooks.
Yes.
Right there. It's right there in my wheelhouse.
And Rick Moranis, what a gift that we don't get to enjoy anymore because he retired.
Yeah.
I watched a little mini documentary on Rick Moranis. Did you know that got attacked in the on the street one time?
Yeah.
Like it was during that punching game or whatever people were doing, and they're like somebody just came and cold cocked him, and it was like Rick Moranis. But he's fortunately, I think health wise he's okay. But man, what a talent! I wish Rick Moranis was coaching the Broncos. That'd make me feel better.
I've kind of got the Rick Moranis dark helmet glasses.
You do, yeah, you do a little bit
going on here. When he'd pull up the mask and you'd see it was always to great effect in that film when he pulled the mask up and it just could basically be Rick Moranis. It was always when he was flustered, right? They pulled up the mask what happened? When the Spaceball 1 goes what happened? What do we got on this thing? And then of course they go to plaid.
Yeah. We
Oh,
need the annexation of Puerto Rico. Like, don't get us on a Rick Moranis tip here. We'll go Little
oh my,
Giants. We'll go
oh.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Like, wherever you want to go, that's where
If we
we'll
really
go.
want to
Little
do
Shop
some
of
deep,
Horrors.
yeah, if we really want to do deep cuts, we'll go back to CTV. We'll go back to the Great White North
Hey.
sketches. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Where's my
Take
Molson
off.
hat? That's
Yes,
right. It is orange and blue
those are.
today. Yeah, that's right. It's what the Broncos fans will be calling Titans fans if they get the win on Sunday in Week 10. As we wrap up the show, got about 5 minutes left, Mace. The calendar's flipped to November.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL changes, and one of the great things about this show is one, our audience, and two, the response, but three, I can just toss out like historical things that you understand
I
because
speak your
you are
language.
a historian of this great game. Like every year, and maybe it's more towards Thanksgiving than it is right now on November 8th, but I know it's coming. And I had a conversation this morning with my best friend Big E, who's a Bills fan, and we were talking about like they don't have a hammer. Like they'll go get Naheem Hines, that's great, but he's not a hammer.
Right.
And that's fine. Regular season, your offense can be pass, 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 and spread them out and pass, 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 pass. When you get to the postseason, you have to run. And in November and December, NFL football changes. There is a season change, not only a time change, an actual season change, but there's a change in this league where teams that emphasize the run more have more success. Will the Broncos be cognizant of that season change and they themselves follow not the trend, Mace? This is just history. This is just what happens in the NFL where it's like, yeah, you're great. You can throw the ball all over. But can you run in November and December?
Running game and defense. Those are the two things that travel.
Yes.
When you get to November, December, and playoff football, and I say travel, by that I mean you can win on the road with those. And you take a look at the Titans. First weekend of November, they go to Kansas City, and they nearly steal a game they had no business winning with a quarterback who had no business being out there. And they nearly steal it because their defense and their run game, right? Yep. It's actually interesting to me that as good as the Titans have been, that they haven't quite finished. Now, they had that year, the 2019 season, where they went all the way to the AFC championship game and lost in Kansas City. But the Titans actually have the equation that usually wins, the time-tested equation. And oh, by the way, you've got, I believe, more close games this year than at any point in the last 30 years. Right. Scoring is down.
Yep.
So it actually kind of lends itself to that type of football. So if you're the Broncos, heck yeah, you emphasize the run. And you know what? This is where you have a stable now, okay? You have 4 guys who have been productive in this league. Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray, Marlon Mack, and Chase Edmonds. Edmonds is definitely more of a situational player, right? But he can help you in pass pro. With these 4 running backs, I think you use them, you keep them all fresh, and you try to come at your opponent in waves. And I know you hate the hot hand thing, but right now, with these guys, it's probably your best bet to say, okay, who's hot today? Let's go with that. Let's go with that player. If it's Marlon Mack who's sizzling, then you put Marlon Mack. Then you feed Marlon Mack heavily in the second half of games. This is the way. And on the defensive side, this week, if you don't have Baron Browning back, I think you're just kind of holding on, right? This is the game where you have to hold on. This is where you're going to feel losing Bradley Chubb the most. It's unfortunate that you are playing a team like the Titans without Bradley Chubb and potentially without Baron Browning and definitely without Randy Gregory.
Right.
But once you get them back, you take the running game on offense, you take what this defense should be able to do, and you actually have an equation to where if you can sneak into the playoffs, you can fly through the side window and be a 7 seed, you can go on the road in January and upset people. You know what? Just like this Titans team did back in 2019 when they went on the road and got all the way to the AFC Championship game. If the Broncos are committed to this, and then you complement that run game with a play action game that takes judicious shots downfield to KJ Hamler, to Greg Dulcich, this is something that can work. But they got to get it done Sunday. I mean, this is like, I can't see a path for them to make this happen if they don't win in Nashville.
You're just running out of time. You're running out of time. And Holy Diver says it in the chat room. This is Hackett's chance to show the fans he is making adjustments.
Right.
This is Hackett's chance to understand the best coaches in this league are ones that like, I want to do this, but we can't do that yet because I don't have the guys to do that yet. So I'm a back burner that. And then what do you guys do? Now let's do that. What do you don't do? Let's not do that. If Hackett does that, and I don't like the hot hand approach, but I'll take it, baby. If they're running the ball, I'll take it all day. Like, give me 35, 40 carries between these 3-4 backs, 50 carries. I'll get greedy. And 20 passing attempts for Russ. It doesn't say anything about Russ. It's just, you have a great defense. You should have a great ground game to complement them.
Well, the problem is the only guy who profiles as an RB1 right now at this stage in his career is Melvin Gordon, but he puts the ball on the ground too much. If Gordon wasn't putting the ball on the ground, he was just normal Melvin Gordon. You could just run him and ride him from this point forward, but you don't have that option. So you're having to recreate that in the aggregate. But yeah, Hackett's got to realize what his team does best and what's the best path here. And he's got to adapt. Like you say, the great coaches adapt. To me, it's the Don Shula test, right? And the reason I always bring up Don Shula is this. He went to the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback in Earl Morrall in Baltimore. He went to the Super Bowl with the no-name defense and a strong ground game. He went to a Super Bowl with David Woodley, and you younger people will say, who? Exactly. He's probably the worst starting quarterback in the history of the Super Bowl, and they got there with him and a good defense. And then 3 years later, they get back to the Super Bowl, or 2 years later, they get back to the Super Bowl with Dan Marino setting all kinds of records. The genius of Don Shula was that he looked at his team and said, this is what my talent dictates we do best, so this is what we're going to do. And he wasn't married to scheme, and he wasn't married to style. He was married to success and maximizing those guys that he had. And this, if Nathaniel Hackett adapts, then you know what? It says a lot about him as a coach and where he can go. So if he adapts, pivots to what this team can do best, even though it's not sexy right now, you know what? I think I'll feel very confident in Nathaniel Hackett being the coach for the team for the next few years.
Adapt and survive.
Yep.
It is where Nathaniel Hackett is at. Is orange and blue today. Feels great, baby. Feels great to be back. Just quoted Jimmy Garoppolo. So we got Rick Moranis. We got a Senior Bowl blast. I got to talk about Chike Okonkwo. So Spaceballs.
All we didn't mention today was Tariq Woolen or Isaiah Pacheco. But I tweeted
that. You tweeted
I had
that.
to.
Yeah.
I knew that would break your heart a little bit.
I mean, he's just the best corner in the league, almost. Like, imagine Tariq Woolen and Pat Surtain. I mean, I had no worries, baby.
I could not have imagined he would have blossomed this fast. Right?
The
thing. I thought he was a 2 to 3 year project.
Yeah.
This isn't. You
and I talked about him after the draft. We're like, he's 6'4", he runs a 4.2, he has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter because it's working.
Yeah, he found an idea, and I'd rather have Tariq Woolen than Sauce Gardner because Tariq Woolen doesn't grab like Sauce does. I mean, at some point, Sauce is going to start getting called for DPI.
Yes,
you'd expect that. I mean, Buffalo fans are saying the same things that Bronco fans were after the Jets game.
Yep,
and they had a point, just like Bronco fans did.
Right. It is orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason. We certainly appreciate you guys. What a fun show. Fun to be back. Let's go Broncos, man. Let's make this thing happen. We'll be back for you every day, Monday through Friday, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. He is Andrew Mason. I am Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned. And as always, I want you to stay frosty.